Aureal, how are you doing?
Oh, Sandra, I am so happy to be with you today. Two friends talking about galactic astrology. Wow.
Yeah, and I think what's great about this is that we started to sort of chat on our own, and I realized that the questions I was asking you would probably very of much interest to other astrologers, and whether they're into galactic astrology or not, because it raises some additional areas of astrology to look into. So it's a really good idea to be able to have this conversation and share the understanding really of a subject, well,
Yeah.
outline of a subject.
Yes, Sandra, I am so grateful to have this conversation because it is my passion and it is much better in a community. So yes.
Great. So I've kind of got a list of questions, so I'll keep looking at them. Um,
Okay.
so something that on sort of my astrology journey and a lot of what's happening in the sort of YouTube community with channelers, astrologers talking, etc. There seems to be kind of galactic astrology keeps raising up into some of those interviews. And sort of for me, something I seem to be sensing and feeling is that is galactic astrology becoming more important in 2026 than it has been previously? And if so, how?
Absolutely, Sandra. Great question. First of all, I'd like to share what my concept of galactic astrology is. And um, we have a pioneer, Philip Sedgwick, and earlier than the 1990s, he was talking about black holes, pulsars, quasars as having an astrological coordination with humanity. And he was my first galactic teacher, my main, and he remains today my main teacher. And so galactic astrology, as I understand it, is all of these planets that have been discovered since the 1990s. There's centaurs, there's more asteroids, there's more Kuiper Belt objects, Oort clouds, bodies. And then we have the James Webb Space Telescope, which is giving us these vivid, crystal clear images of deep space. And so all of that is raising our consciousness. And it's kind of like when the people on land could not see the ships coming. They had never seen a ship before, so it wasn't in their consciousness. And that's how it is now. The more we see this and learn about these bodies, the more we embody our connection with them and realize the unity of it all. So it's definitely more important now. It's and we're moving. With the inner planets, we had personality, and then with the discovery of Neptune of Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, we had the transpersonal experience, and now we're having the galactic experience. And many people are saying that we are becoming galactic beings, and I feel that too.
Yeah, and I think that's quite interesting because I've been watching quite a few Barbara Ann Clow interviews on YouTube, and she's an astrologer and also part Native American Indian. So she's had passed down to her information from her grandfather, who was Native American, and she's networked this information with astrology. And from what I could read and understand from our interviews, from a book, The Alchemy of Nine Dimensions, is that people on Earth, we've kind of been fixed with the inner and outer planets and the karmic cycle. And that now we're entering into sort of a new era, this galactic era, as the planets move, and the galactic center and great attractor are bringing more energy into Earth. that this is in some way going to start to break that karmic wheel so that we can become these more spiritual, connected galactic beings from all of this additional energy that's starting to come in from the galactic. What are your thoughts on that?
I, I have a lot of thoughts on that. But first, Sandra, I would like to share that Barbara Hand Clow is the sister to Rob Hand. And Rob Hand is a great grandfather in astrology. We owe so much to him. So it's really intriguing to me that these two prominent people who are pioneers in these interconnected fields are related. I really like that, knowing that. So yeah, with karma, and also want to say something that in the mid 90s, I took my first class with Philip Sedgwick on deep space astrology, and he said at that time that karma was over. And I never really understood that, but your question helps me clarify it, and Barbara Hand Clow's work too, is that there's so many changes. There are multiple levels of changes. We moved from the Aquarian age, from the Piscean age to the Aquarian age. We're moving from dimensions, from the third dimension to the fifth dimension and higher. We are becoming galactic beings. And with all of that shift, we're moving from being victims to being co-creators, to being sovereign beings. And also in that shift, we move from the separate all kinds of separation, the separation within ourselves and the separation of time. And it's way beyond my ability to explain it, but people are telling us, informed people are telling us that past, present, and future are one. And we're also moving from the victimhood into where we're accepting our shadow parts. We're becoming one within ourselves. We're treasuring those parts that have been exiled and submerged into realizing we need them. We need to be conscious of them, embrace them, and release them to be whole. And so, with all of these shifts, we're moving out of the feedback wheel of karma, like people who were self-aware and self-actualizing would see that if they made a choice that wasn't the wisest, that there would be consequences. And if we couldn't attribute it to this lifetime, if we were having challenging circumstances, we often thought that it was from a past lifetime. Well, now in this advanced quantum leap of consciousness, we're realizing that we are determiners. We can course correction in a second. And so we can lift out of that karmic wheel and into clearer choice points. It's not that it's the end of cause and effect, but it's the beginning of taking supreme self-responsibility and not blaming, judging, feeling guilt or shame, being locked up in all of those things that really inhibit our progress. So that's how I see that we're moving out of karma.
Yeah, and I feel this is really interesting because well, looking at my charts and my life and how I've sort of moved forward, and then reading other people's charts, I'd say there was mine and probably four others that I was reading that I was really getting a sense, a really deep sense of completion. And for me, it was as though all of a sudden I've become sovereign. And yes, you do get the energies from the planets coming down to you, but it's knowing that you've got a conscious choice on how you act and react to everything so that you're really stepping out of that chart. You're not held in it. I envisage it a bit like, a pinball machine with the ball being buffeted around. It's as though you're no longer that ball. It's been taken out of the machine, and you can choose where you go and what you do and how you interact. But very much that as you said, the balancing of the shadow side. And although there isn't a karma, it's doing what's right, and what's right for everybody, not for selfish gain, is kind of what I'm getting and feeling from everything.
Absolutely. And what you shared, Sandra, makes me think of that we're gaining more stability in our multidimensionality. You know, we have the chakras and the higher chakras and the higher dimensions that we are being grounded in, that we are being embodied in. And so we are not as buffered by those spinning balls. You know, we have stability, we have inner stability in who we are.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, the chakras, in the Barbara Hand Clowes book, which I've got on my desk here, Astrology and the Rising of Kundalini, she mentions two medical doctors, and one of them focuses on energy healing, and one of them has done work on the planets and the energy that they bring in. And there seems to be evidence that the planets do actually affect the energy in the body through the chakra system. So it's absolutely amazing that we can start to piece this together. And although regular science at the moment doesn't appreciate this, there's always a new opportunity and a new learning. So when people start to talk about plasma in space, that this could be energy, that how that's transferred to the body, which we're not sure what it is, how to capture it, how to quantify it. But if we're open and accept it, we can feel the energy and we can feel the change and learn to work with it. I don't know if that's something that you've considered.
Absolutely. I consider it all the time, Sandra. Well, in the 1980s, the early 1980s, I carried around in my eyeglass case a newspaper clipping that says we come from the stars. And I don't remember what scientist said that, but science science confirms that we are made of stardust. And so as our awareness brings us to these super clusters, the galaxies, all of the planets in between, we realize we are part of them. You know, they are us and we are them. It's the same unity that connects every human, every animal, every tree. It's all one. It doesn't matter where it is. If it's got life, we're one, you know.
And
So,
it's
yeah.
that energy, isn't it? Because each of the cells has energy, and it's how that energy speaks to each other, and like you said, to plants, trees,
Yeah,
animals, and
exactly.
you know, and going upwards to the galaxy. So
Right.
if we go back to kind of putting our astrology hats on, so I'm relatively new to astrology, although I've been on a massive deep dive into astrology. Um, so with galactic astrology, does that make inner and outer planets and dwarf planets and asteroids, does that make them obsolete or does it enhance them?
Oh, it enhances them. It's all of them are necessary. We are every planetary being is valid and helping us, you know, and absolutely. It just matter. The only difference is where your focus is, like what's calling your attention. You know, they're all needed. Every single one of them is important.
So then the question would it be then, I'm just kind of feeling it, that it depends on the client's level of consciousness as to whether they're working with the inner and outer planets alone, inner and outer and asteroids or dwarf planets, or if they're more fully actualized, would they then be working towards with the galactic energies?
Well, I'm hesitant to put a label on a hierarchical label on it. It's like the snowflakes. We understand there's no snowflake. Every single snowflake is unique, and that's the same thing. And the deep space planets are not better than the inner planets. They're everyone is valid and contributing to the whole of our evolution. So I think it determines on what is your path? What calls to you? It's like I I I think we can both agree that we follow the breadcrumbs. We pay attention to our intuition and say, "Oh, look here," and that's unique for each of us. So it doesn't matter. There's no labeling of good, bad, better, worst. It's all rich.
Yeah, and that's it. And I'm just trying to think from an astrologer's point of view. I mean, obviously, there's so many different types of astrology, and you often hear astrologers say, "Oh, well, there's just too many objects in the sky. Obviously, we can't use them all." But what is it about galactic astrology that makes it so important to look at for people's charts?
But speaking for myself, I think it's what calls to us. It's like we're finding these new friends or these new relatives, this new kin, and they're calling to us. I think it's about curiosity. It's about awakening. A new kind of awareness is awakening that just kind of magnetizes us to um, to want to explore more, to want to just look at it even. I think that's it's happening. I mean, just like we have all of these astronomy photos from deep space itself. And when we see that, it sparks something in us. It sparks a recognition that we might not be aware of, we might not put words to, but there's something that comes alive for us. And so it's just kind of magnetic. And it's if you're not bit by the bug, it's fine. It's just whatever calls to you. When I studied for 2 years in the Dwarf Planet University, and when I completed that training in like 2022, the sky just opened up for me, the Kuiper Belt sky, and there were we at that time we studied 10 of them, and here now I'm working with like 80 of them. And
Wow.
it was a visceral experience, Sandra, of just this love pouring from the sky, and yeah,
And I totally understand that because I'm racing through the Dwarf Planet University as well myself at the moment. And it's like what I really like about learning astrology is learning through your own chart rather than a celebrity's chart and
right,
being in a group of people who share their experience from their chart. Because even if they've got their planets in the same or similar positions to myself, their experience in life can be so, so different. So it's understanding how those energies can affect people in a different way. But certainly, like for me, the dwarf planets are very much more when people are on a spiritual path, and it helps to open up that spiritual understanding of self, and to give a wider, fuller appreciation of self. Is kind of what I get with it, so that you can become sovereign and that you can, when you're ready, be comfortable with who you are and be able to, I say master, could be mistress, of your own
right,
destiny more, but being more in touch with, rather than dominating the energy, is working with it and working with the landscape, working with energy around you to actually get more happiness, joy, and fulfillment from your life. And part of that can be this continual quest for learning that some of us have.
right,
Um,
exactly, exactly.
and it's always kind of like for me, there's always something more. So I'm kind of at the doorway thinking, people keep mentioning galactic astrology to me, there's something here, not quite sure what it is. I do feel that there's a shift in energy, a big shift in energy, and I've been on a very fast path with astrology. And I know I'm drawn to the galactic astrology and learning more about it because I just feel that there's so much more out there. You know, the sun doesn't revolve around the earth. You know,
Right, exactly.
so
Exactly.
it's kind of like very much for me that, you know, whatever we've been told, a lot of things that we've been told are absolutely being proven not to be correct. And it's what else is out there. I think it's nice to be open to seeing what's there and how we can feel it, being in touch with it, intuit it, and how we can work with that energy. Does that kind of make sense?
Absolutely, Sandra. The core of my experience in working with clients and groups is to do a guided imagery where people connect to these bodies directly because we are becoming sovereign beings, and there's nothing external that can tell us more than we know in ourselves. And it's just a matter of being quiet and still and receptive and with inquiry. And so I like to label it or name it or frame it as an experiential learning experience of just really connecting, knowing that the connection is live. It's both directions and it's alive.
And I think to people listening, they might think that that sounds very woo-woo. But then if you link it back to the science, and I will have to dig out the reference from Barbara Ann Clow's book of the work on how the electromagnetism affects us and how it affects us differently because of where it's as though we get a magnetic imprint when we're born as to where planets were when we're born. So it makes sense that as we start to reach out further, the stars, the galaxies were always there. Just because we didn't know about them doesn't mean that they didn't have any effect on us. So it's now being able to, as science is starting to show, that we can pick up on these electromagnetic fields if we focus on, you know, the galactic center, for example, then it would make sense that we can start to discern and feel and sense and know the energy that comes from that direction. And that, with the guided imagery, is exactly what you're helping people to achieve.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely, Sandra. I want it to be a direct, visceral experience that it comes from within. I can't tell anybody anything that they do not already know. It's just a matter of helping them realize they know it.
And I think that's a really important part as well, because when you have any type of astrology reading, if somebody's dictating to you how your chart should be interpreted, they're going to have a lot of misses because it depends on the person whose chart it is, how awake or aware they are, and how they relate the information to their lives and how they've lived it and how they wish to perhaps use that information to work differently. Whereas readings that, you know, are, I don't like the word dictatorial, probably too much tell, tell, tell and not interactive, they could probably miss the point for many people. So
Right.
this kind of inner knowing, it's not that somebody wakes up and they just know everything. It's starting to become aware and focused thinking and open awareness and being open to things and then looking how it relates back in your own life brings even more awareness and growth.
Absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely.
so that's great. So it's galactic astrology. You're not saying to people then, oh, you don't want to be bothering with those normal astrology type readings.
Oh, no, absolutely. It's to weave them all together is the ultimate. And I just happen to be called to the thing that lights me up the most, that brings the most life to me, are the filaments that are in the superclusters, because they're not bound by gravity so much. They're electromagnetic as well, and they're cohesive. They connect things. And so it just depends on what's calling you, what's reaching out to get your attention. Yeah, but they're all important. They're all necessary.
Yeah, so it's really amazing, isn't it, how things change as well. So I've kind of was considering because there's different types of charts that can be drawn up. So with galactic astrology, can you use it with geocentric charts?
Yes, now we're talking about the geocentric and the heliocentric, and again, I refer to our pioneers in the field of the heliocentric chart. First of all, galactic astrology can be used with both geocentric and heliocentric. These bodies are so far out there that their placements in both charts are gonna be minimal, if any. It's the personal planets that shift in the heliocentric chart. And the I've been called to pay attention to the heliocentric chart, and I want to acknowledge our pioneers, our astrology's pioneers in this, Michael Erlewine, who I consider the great grandfather of heliocentric astrology, and Philip Sedgwick, the grandfather, although they're not that much different in age. Michael Erlewine introduced it, I think, and Philip certainly picked up the banner. And they've both contributed immensely to our understanding of including heliocentric in our practice. And anybody that I've ever read about heliocentric suggests using both. We don't want to ignore one for the other. And Michael Erlewine calls the heliocentric chart the mother chart. And Philip Sedgwick suggests that the heliocentric chart is the more spiritual chart. And I'm called to it to work with the heliocentric chart simply because there has been so much activity from the sun over the past few years. And it's really, the sun is calling our attention. And we know the science, like the sun goes, the earth goes around the sun. It's not the other way around. And so that's the true science of it. And it just makes more sense. And the freedom I get with using the heliocentric chart is it lets go of the houses. The houses are really important, and geocentric has helped countless numbers of people over the hundreds of years. But without the houses, there's so much. It's like the sky is lifted, and there's no arbitrary compartments. And I really like that about the heliocentric, and you can use galactic astrology in either.
Ah, that's amazing. Thank you. So I'm aware that you're going to be setting up your Patreon levels and tiers, but just stepping back and focusing, if because I'm very keen to learn from the chart, my own chart and others in a small group. So when you work with the Patreon group, will you work with both the geocentric and the heliocentric charts, or would you just work with one?
We can work with both. It's again with the galactic astrology, the location, the longitude doesn't change that much. It's minimal if there's anything, so it wouldn't really matter. And one thing about heliocentric, you do not need to know an exact birth time for the heliocentric chart. So people who don't know that, that's a real advantage. But yeah, whatever. And the personal planets do change between the geocentric and the heliocentric. So there could definitely be value in looking at both.
So when you
The
say the
in
personal
because
planets change, you mean that they change sign
they
compared to the geocentric?
they definitely change degrees, and many times they change signs.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So that's a really great point that I truly haven't hadn't considered because my focus has been on heliocentric, but I think for the learning experience that would be wonderful to include both the geocentric and the
Yeah.
heliocentric.
And I think if you kind of think of a, I'm just thinking myself now as a person as you develop, I've seen it with like for my chart, you might be very much your sun sign when you're younger, but then as you grow and develop an experience, you could be quite different. So the I'll be interested to look at my heliocentric chart to see where the sun moves to in that chart. Oh no, the sun wouldn't
The
be there,
sun,
would it?
yeah. Well, this we consider the sun there, but not really. What's
But
there?
the other planets would move. Yeah.
The other planets move, and the sun stays the same in both charts. But what's different is that the Earth is connected to the moon. The Earth and the
Yeah.
moon are exactly opposite the sun in the heliocentric chart. If you draw up a chart, a heliocentric chart in an astrological software program, you're going to see the Earth, which is the symbol of a circle with a straight square in it. That's the symbol of the Earth, and that's the exact opposite point of the sun. And that's what I like about that's another thing I like about it because in my practice of astrology, I'm also evolving my awareness that I can't look at a sun sign without considering the opposite.
Yeah.
So, so what we really need to bring in the balancing part. For instance, Aquarius, we need to bring in Leo. Throughout the 12 signs, we if we bring that cooperation in, it's a much fuller expression of the sun sign.
And that kind of makes sense, really, because if you think of Aquarius, they can appear very off planet, whereas Leo can be very grounded, active, and here and now. So to bring those together would help to give balance to a person in their
Ab
life.
Absolutely. I had a friend, an astrology friend, who was a Libra. And I have never in my life seen a more clear expression of Aries. She was so integrated. Just her boundaries were crystal clear. She had a true sense of herself. It was amazing. And that was a seed point for me in really seeing that we need to live the two of them together. It's like an infinity symbol. One sign is on this end and the other sign is on this end, and we're at the focal point, the center of that infinity symbol, bringing the two together. And that is my goal in how I interact with people in groups or individually.
And this makes so much sense when you look at what people are talking about on a spiritual level of being able to balance the light and the dark, to be able to stand in the middle, and
Absolutely.
to be able to balance the masculine and the feminine within.
Absolutely.
Because it
Absolutely.
seems to be that when we get extremes, that's where there's issues. Whereas if we can incorporate and understand and operate with everything in mind, that might be better.
Absolutely. I I'm really curious about the fifth dimension, and I wrote a book about ordinary ordinary experiences in an extraordinary time about the fifth dimension. And the triad is really important in the fifth dimension. And I think it's because we're bringing those two opposites, like you said, masculine, feminine, shadow and light. We're bringing them together for into a third, into a full integration.
And so this leads me on to thinking now, if we're stepping out of that karmic wheel, maybe it's because each time people have been incarnated wherever they've been incarnated, whether it was off planet or on planet. They've experienced different aspects, but maybe now it's the time to bring it all together, to bring all of that learning and understanding together, which, from what I'm kind of remembering from the essence of what Barbara Hand Clow has been talking about, the galactic is helping to make that happen.
Absolutely. Absolutely. My awareness and my visceral experience, I cannot put this into words, but I feel like, many people are remembering their time on Atlantis or Lemuria, and w what that is for me is remembering before we were human, remembering our galactic journey before we were human. And I feel like all of this work with trauma that so many fantastic people around the world are doing deep work with all the variations of traumatic experience. I feel like we're starting to remember the trauma we had before we were human. It's really deep, and there are no words to describe it except to be together, be with one another, bear witness, and acknowledge, just reconnect with those parts of us that have been so forgotten, reclaim them.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because when you look back at history, the cycles, very short cycles, seem to repeat, repeat, repeat. But it's like, why doesn't humanity learn from these? It's time to wake up and do things differently. And I
Yes,
really feel that the astrology and how everything's moving and changing, that this is bringing the energy in to allow that to happen, allow, catalyze, encourage, empower people is kind of what I'm feeling.
absolutely. And it's a stepping into our sovereignty. It's stepping in to the awareness that there's an internal AI that knows so much more than any AI program can offer. It's knowing within.
And that knowing within, it's that connecting with spirit or oversoul, whatever people want to call it, and that being able to tap into universal consciousness and to pull information in. So if we think we hear little bits about people being able to read Akashic records or people being able to remote view, these are all parts of the skills of using the different energies that we have around our body to be able to do different things. Um, and it's just rather than decrying people for being able to do something, it's keeping an open mind and flexing skills to learn something new and to accept something new.
Absolutely, Sandra. That's absolutely yes. And it's also about not comparing. Like one person might not have that skill set, but they have another skill set. So it's not comparing that one of these new or reclaimed or Renaissance skill sets are better than the other. They're all important. We all receive messages in our own unique way, but this is how we're knowing now. This is,
Yeah,
this
and
is
that's it. Then I caught myself saying new skills. They're not new, they're inner, and
yeah,
it's the unlocking of
yeah,
skills already learnt. Yeah.
yeah. They're who we
Yeah.
are, and we're just remembering who we are and what our capacities are.
Yeah, absolutely. And being allowed to without fear of being hunted down as witches or
Right,
thrown away as being mad,
right, right.
or controlled, or it's that control, isn't it?
Yes, and it's being in small communities or large communities where there is no judgment, there's appreciation, there's value, there's embrace. Where we see in one another the unique skill that the other has, and we can appreciate it, and we can offer what we have for a wholeness.
Absolutely. And it'd be marvelous when everybody can take courage and confidence and step forward and be able to do that?
Well, I think it's happening. I mean, it's certainly happening in all of the, as you say, galactic astrology work that's happening with different groups and different people. And I don't want to get political, but we see it in Minneapolis where people are really stepping up to live the oneness.
And that's it, isn't it? It's knowing that people are people, your neighbor is your neighbor, and a political view should never be allowed to divide you because at
Right,
the end of
right,
the day, we're all human, and it's
right.
trying to get in touch with each person's humanity to be human without being afraid.
That's a signature of the fifth dimension, I think, is to be our sovereign beings and everybody else is sovereign and we don't it's an equanimity, you know. There's not a comparison. It's not hierarchical at all, but everybody is divine, you know?
Yeah, and that would just be amazing. So I'm very keen to be sort of learning more about galactic astrology, as I'm sure lots of other people are out there as well. So as I understand, you're going to be setting up your Patreon three-tier level that of offering. I'm in there straight away for the top tier for because I like the learning from my chart and from others in a group. So I understand you're going to be doing that, which could be heliocentric or galactocentric. Not
Yeah, well,
galactocentric, geocentric. What's
geocentric.
galactocentric?
Well, galactic centric is what we're talking about.
Oh,
It's
yay.
realizing that we are galactic beings. Yes, Sandra, and I am thrilled to be teaching in this new way, to step up into my capacity as teacher, leading and so these are the tiers, and I'm launching them around the spring equinox 2026. I'm thrilled that you're interested.
Yeah, that's amazing. And then if you're in tier three, which is the top tier, do you get access to, included to tier two and tier one?
Yes, tier three
Yeah.
includes access to both of the other tiers. Yes,
And likewise for tier two, if you're in tier two, you get access to tier one as well.
that's right, Sandra. Yes,
Wow, that
yes.
sounds really amazing.
Thank you.
I
Thank
can't
you.
wait.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, there are links to the to more information within this YouTube video. Look below and find the
Yeah,
link to that.
that's amazing. Brilliant. Well, thank
Yes.
you, Aureal. I can't wait to join the group.
Oh, Sandra, thank you. I've loved this conversation, and I hope it's the first of many where we can talk heart to heart and cosmic body to cosmic body.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah.
Great.
Yes. Thank you,
All
Sandra.
right. See you
Okay,
soon.
bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye, everybody. Bye.